do love the cover of this, but that cannot be the only reason why I keep a book. Unfortunately, we do not have the space for that thinking anymore. Hello my loves, and thank you for joining me. It's Kirsten, and today we've done a bit of spring cleaning of my shelves. That's right, we are doing an unhaul video. So let's just get straight into this. We know what an unhaul is. This stack of books is a lot smaller than I thought it was going to be though, and I'm really pleased with that because it just goes to show that I'm getting an understanding of my reading taste. The books that I'm actually buying I'm really enjoying, which is amazing. But yeah, let's just jump straight into this. Although, do tell me, do you do unhauls? Is it something you like to do, going through your shelves and clearing off things, or do you prefer to keep all of your books? Let me know. But yes, let's just jump straight into this. So we have a mixture of books that I've DNF'd, books that I've read but will not reread, and a couple that are on my shelves that I know I'm never actually going to get round to reading. Starting off with a book that's been on my shelves for a while that I know I'm not going to read, and that is William Shakespeare's Henry VIII. So I did have this vision that I was going to be a Shakespeare girly because I read Macbeth, absolutely loved it. Macbeth is my favourite play and I do have a copy for my shelf. And I thought to myself, you know what, I'm going to get all of the Shakespeare books in this Penguin Classic Edition. I'm going to pick them up second hand and I'm going to do it and I will read them and I will be a Shakespeare girly. Yeah, that didn't happen. I read Macbeth and Macbeth only in the last couple years and that's it. And I just have no interest in reading other Shakespeare plays. It's not something I ever think about when I'm doing my TBR videos. It just doesn't happen. And so yeah, this one's gonna have to go. I was interested in it because I like Henry VIII, like that time period. I'm really intrigued by it. But I have some historical fiction books around that time period. So do I need to read a Shakespeare one in the hopes of being a Shakespeare girly when I know I'm never gonna be one? No, not really. It was a nice idea, it just never actually happened. Then we have a book I've read but I'm never going to reread, and that is The Christie Affair by Nina de Gramont. This was mismarketed in my opinion. This was done as a what happened to Agatha Christie in those 13 days that she disappeared, because nobody knows what happened. Like, she never told anyone, nobody knows what happened, and so Nina did a book stating it from Nan's perspective, and Nan was Agatha Christie's husband's mistress, and did it from her perspective that she knew what had happened. Except this book does not focus on Agatha Christie and what happened during that time. Instead, this is more of a historical fiction book during that time where you've got the war going on and how girls were treated then, especially girls who ended up getting pregnant and the way that was all treated, what happened to their children, what happened to the women. And we're seeing Nan and all the difficulties that she's been through and reason why she became a mistress. And you know what, okay, interesting, but it's not about Agatha Christie, which is what this was marketed as. What happened when she went missing? And it's like Agatha Christie's mentioned barely at all. We don't really get her perspective, we don't get anything really going on with it. It's just, it is more of a historical fiction. You also get a bit of a murder mystery halfway through. I feel like this book tried doing too many things and it didn't really work, and then it was marketed as Agatha Christie even though it's not really anything to do with her. It should have just been marketed as a historical fiction book looking at women during war and what happened to them, and I feel like the Agatha Christie thing was just used as like a time reference thing and maybe get a bit more hype around it. It just didn't really work, unfortunately, so I will not be rereading this one. I do think it was interesting to learn about what women went through during that time. It was really hard, really harrowing. It's not what it was marketed as. Another book that was on my TBR that I know I'm just not going to get round to reading is Love in a Cold Climate by Nancy Mitford. This is a book that I picked up second hand. I've had it on my shelves for a little while. I have a lot of classic books and I tend to keep hold of my classic books because I know I will read them eventually. Classic books I just got to be in the mood for. I'm not in the mood for them all the time, but I know when I read them 9 times out of 10 I tend to really enjoy them. This is one that I don't think I'm ever going to get round to though. This is a beautiful cover and it's the reason why I picked it up, but it's also a second book, so it's a follow-up to The Pursuit of Love, which I have not read and I don't own. So I feel like until I decide to get round to reading that, there's no point in having this one, and I don't know when I'm going to get round to that because I have like 35 maybe more other classic books to read. So am I ever really going to get round to it? I don't think so, at least not for a good few years, and there's no point holding on to a second book in a series in the event that I might eventually read the first one. It's just not really gonna happen. I picked it up because of the cover and because it was a classic book and I was going through a massive classics phase, and yes, I do love classics, and yes, I do go through phases of reading them and really enjoying them, but it's not enough to justify keeping this one when I haven't even read the first book. But it does sound funny because we're following a Polly who decides to marry her uncle, which is very scandalous and all of this stuff, and it's meant to be really funny. Until I've read the first one, there's just no point, even though it is gorgeous, and I do love the cover of this, but that cannot be the only reason why I keep a book. Unfortunately, we do not have the space for that thinking anymore. Okay, another book that I read but I will not reread is Boy Parts by Eliza Clark, and honestly I thought about DNF in this book so many times when I was reading it. I did not enjoy this one. This one is a book that supports women's wrongs, does comment on society. We're following Irina, who is a photographer. She likes to take photos of very mundane looking men but in very explicit positions. However, she is a really toxic, horrible person. She is, honestly, I hated being in her head. I hated her thoughts, I hated the way she treated people, like it was awful. And yes, this does comment on society, but I feel like there are other books that do this and do it better, and I just wasn't enjoying this. Unfortunately, it just didn't work for me, and I do know that contemporary books like this are very hit and miss with me, and I think I'm just going to steer clear of these sort of books because I tend not really to enjoy them. It was a shame because again, this was another one I picked up because it was very hyped up on TikTok, beautiful cover, and I thought why not? It then sat on my shelves for like 2 years before finally getting read, and I didn't enjoy it. So yeah, that one can go. By the way, all of these books do go to a charity shop when I'm done with them. I like doing that because that's what I used to read when I was younger and couldn't afford new books, is going off to charity shops and picking them up secondhand. So that's what I do with all my books, is I just give them straight to there. I don't sell them. Okay, we then have Salt Slow by Julia Armfield. This is a book again I don't think I'm going to reread. This is a short story collection, and I do like Julia Armfield's writing. This one just didn't really work for me. I picked this one up because I really enjoyed Our Wives Under the Sea. That's a book that stayed with me for longer than what I thought it would. It's one of those ones that I read and I thought it was okay, but I just haven't stopped thinking about, and I was like, that was actually pretty good. So then I decided to pick up this short story collection when I saw it, and I do think some of these were really good. However, it kind of peaked with the first story for me, which was Mantis. I loved that story. I thought it was really good, really eerie, really creepy. I liked the writing of it. The rest of these, some I liked, some I really didn't like, but that's it. And I know it's not going to be a short story collection I reread. Instead, I think I'm just going to keep my eye out for Julia Armfield's next work. I think they've got one coming out soon, or it's already out. I'm not sure. I'll have to have a look, because I think their work is interesting. Their concepts are really good. I like their writing style. It's very different and weird and kind of creepy, but I do like it. It's just I don't think I'm going to ever pick up this short story collection again. So yeah, I think I'm going to pass that on to somebody else, because I do think this does give a good insight into their writing style. And I feel like short story collections are good for that, for trying out their writing style, seeing the different ideas that an author has. Mantis was my favourite out of this one. It was really good, really creepy, and I loved that. And I feel like there was so much you could pull from that, and I was so like, oh my god, this collection's going to be amazing. And then it just kind of went, oh, okay, since then it just kind of tapered off for me, which is a bit of a shame. Another one I won't ever reread is Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. I might see if my mum wants to read this one though. This was good. This was actually a gift from my brother for my birthday, because he saw the daisy on the cover and was like, she likes daisies, and he was right. I like daisy. This I liked. It was kind of like a mystery thriller. It was a retelling of an Agatha Christie book, but make it a bit more spooky. I liked it. I think by the end of the book everything made sense, but it's just not one I'm going to reread. It was good for the time. It takes place on Halloween. I think it's a good like Halloween quick read. Not that you have to read this at Halloween. The Halloween vibes are actually really subtle, but it was fine. So we're following Daisy, and Daisy's Darker's family is not good. They're kind of bad, and you see Daisy's life. You see flashbacks into how Daisy's been treated, and Daisy Darker's family has got together for the first time in ages. They're going to their nan's house, who is on this kind of remote island that once the tide comes in, you can't get off it until the tide goes out. So they're all stuck there, and one by one they start dying. I did enjoy it. I thought it was good fun, I just wouldn't reread it. But I think I'll put this one to one side and see if my mum wants to read it. If not, it will go to a charity shop, but yeah, she might like this one. A book I've had on my TBR that I know I'm not going to read is The Secrets of Deer Cliff Grange School by Kim Newman. I picked this one up for 99 pence. It was brand new, but I don't know, I've had this one for a little while. I never think about reading it. And I just don't think I'm ever going to. This one is about a boarding school for unusual girls, and we're following Amy, and it goes from there. There's like this secret society and stuff. Like, it does sound like there's a lot of good things in this. I have a lot of fantasy books to read. I have a lot of series to continue, and I know this one's just going to keep getting pushed off until I make a dent in some of those, and that's going to take me such a long time that this is never going to happen anytime soon. So I don't feel bad about not having read it. Again, it was only 99 pence, so yeah, we'll pass it on to somebody else who might actually enjoy this one and read it and give it the love that it deserves. A book I DNF'd, we have The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins. I feel kind of bad about this one because I've been recommended this book quite a few times because I love Jane Eyre, I love Rebecca, I love those sort of gothic stories. Unfortunately, I do not like Wilkie Collins' writing style. It just wasn't working for me. I can get past a lot of things in books, like it doesn't bother me, but if I don't gel with the writing style, I know that no matter how many times I'm going to try and push through it, it's just not going to work for me. And so I'm very much a firm believer of, if you're not enjoying it, there's no point continuing on. So this one is gonna go, unfortunately. I was really intrigued. It does sound really good with trying to find out about this woman who escaped from an asylum, who's maybe been kept there that shouldn't have been kept there, but it just, it's very slow start off, and I wasn't enjoying the writing style. So yeah, it's one of those ones that I kept going to myself, oh, I'll come back to it, I'll come back to it. I know I'm not going to. I know this is just going to sit gathering dust on my shelves, and I'm only keeping it because so many people have said, oh, but if you like Jane Eyre, you're really going to like this. But if I don't like the writing style, I'm not going to like it, and I don't like the writing style, so it's just not going to happen. We're gonna move that along and hopefully somebody else finds it and enjoys it. But it just didn't work for me, and I'm really gutted about it, but it is what it is. Another book that's been sitting on my TBR for a while, we have First Juniper Tree by Adam E. Holton. This is actually an indie book, and this is just a book that is two people having a conversation. It takes across one day, set in Newcastle. Two friends decide to entertain and comfort each other after one has to quit his job, and they just start chatting. And they talk about various different things, and I feel like it would be a nice slice of life book, and I feel like the writing style is actually quite good. It's just, I've had this since 2022 and I've not picked it up once. I just can't keep hanging on to books because of that. So this is going to be put down. Someone else could really enjoy this one. It's not capturing me. Like, there's nothing about it that I'm like, oh, that sounds really good, really interesting. I'm going to have to be in a very particular mood, and that mood has not struck for like over a year and a half. So rather than hanging on to it, let's see if somebody else enjoys it. Similarly, we have The Girl of Fire and Thorns by Ray Carson. This is a book I won a good few years ago at this point, and I've still not read it. It is a young adult book. It seems very typical young adult. We have Elsa, or Eliza, who is 16. She has become the secret wife of a handsome and worldly king, a king who needs her to be the chosen one, not a failure of a princess. There's lots of enemies and stuff going on, and I imagine they're going to come into her power unless, you know, that's if she doesn't die young. And I feel like, you know, it's typical YA fantasy, but again, I have loads of fantasy books on my TBR. I never think about picking this one up. Is there any point in keeping it and hoarding it for that one day that might eventually come that I may potentially pick it up? Or, you know, move it on so somebody else has a chance to enjoy it. I feel like that's the better option, you know. It's one of those things, like, I was interested when I first won it, but I've just not read it, and I have so many other young adult books too that I can read. Like, I've got some of them in this stack from the Locked Library book subscription. I've got other ones that I need to continue on with series of. This is one that I've been thinking about unhauling for like a year, and I just never quite do, because I think, oh, but what if I enjoy it? And I keep telling myself that, but it's been a good, like, what, 2-3 years now, and I've still not read it. So so it's time to just to accept that I'm probably not going to. Okay, so now the last few books are books that I've read but I'm not going to reread, and one of them is The Mysterious Case of the Appleton Angels by Janice Hallett. Now I am in the minority when it comes to this book. I did not enjoy this book. I know lots of people have really enjoyed this book. They really liked the writing style, the way this is done. The setup of this book is that you open up this safe, and inside the safe is a collection of all these different documents and things that have been printed out, and you have the choice. Do you put them back in the safe and pretend it never happened, or do you go to the police with this? So you proceed to read all of the documents, and that's what this is. So this book is done as transcripts and emails and text messages and things like that. We also have excerpts from different scripts for like TV shows, films, things like this, even a book. And it's all about this mystery that happened where this cult convinced a girl that that her baby was the Antichrist and she had to kill it, and then they got interrupted. Except for me, it didn't work because I couldn't get connected to any of the characters. I feel like the mystery got waylaid at points and it didn't really circle back to it. It was more to do with this infighting between the two characters that end up working together for this case, and because there's like a bad vibe between them because of something that happened previously, it ends up dissolving into pettiness. I found the ending a bit predictable, and I don't know, I just feel like I wanted something different from this book and I didn't quite get it. But I am in the minority when it comes to this. Lots of people have really enjoyed it. It's a shame, but it just didn't work for me, and Janice Hallett's, all her other books are like this, so I think I'm just going to give it a skip because I just don't think it works for me. I would recommend to other people because I know lots of people have enjoyed this, and I think this was definitely more of a me thing than anything else. We then have The Valkyrie by Katie Hartfield. This was part of the Locked Library book subscription. It's a gorgeous edition. We have stenciled edges and lovely foiling under the dust jacket. Like, it is a gorgeous edition. However, it was fine. I wanted more from this book than what I got. So this is a retelling Norse mythology. I don't know too much about Norse mythology, and maybe that's the reason why I didn't gel with it, but we're following two main characters. Brynhild, who is a Valkyrie, who is fallen Valkyrie. We have Gudrun, who is a princess, and we have Sigurd, a warrior. And we're seeing how these three interact. We're seeing the romance between Brynhild and Gudrun, and it was fine. It's just, I'm never going to reread it, and I feel like it started off really strong and I was like, oh, I really like this, but it just never delved deep enough into the topics that it started with. By the end of it, I was like, oh, it's okay, it's not bad. But, you know, I mean, it was fine. Like I said, there was a couple of lines that I ended up underlining at the start because I thought it was really good. We had, I could fly no longer, I was a woman. That was my punishment. The very worst thing Odin could imagine. And there's lots of comments about that, about Odin believing that being a woman is the worst thing possible, then striving against that. But it was only at the start and it didn't delve deep enough into it. It was very surface level, and then we get the story of what was going on between the different women, and you know, it was interesting, but it wasn't gripping, and I'm never gonna reread it. So someone else can have this gorgeous book because it is gorgeous, and maybe someone else who has more of an appreciation for Norse mythology might really enjoy this one. It's just, for me, it didn't quite work. Another Locked Library book that I've decided, I mean, honestly, it was hard to get rid of these because they're gorgeous. I started reading this, then DNF'd it, and I know I'm never going to get back to it, and that is The Library of Broken Worlds by Alea Dawn Johnson. This book was very heavy sci-fi, and I'm still pretty new to sci-fi, and I was so confused by what was going on with this. Also, the narrative jumps around a bit in terms of things that are happening. So the way this is done, we have a main character that's talking to this fire god, and she's telling him stories, but she never fully finishes the stories. It's kind of like is it the 101 Arabian Nights? It felt like that, where the stories are never quite finished and we're just going to move on, and she's keeping him distracted. As a result, it means that all the stories kind of just start in the middle and then finish abruptly. You're not really given enough information about the world because it's kind of taken for granted that you know about the world. But this is a science fiction world, and it is nothing grounded in anything that I could connect to, so I just felt lost a lot of the time that I was reading this book, and I feel like a little bit more detail into what was happening would have really helped. Whether that came later on, I don't know, but I really struggled with this one. I really struggled understanding it. But it is, again, a gorgeous copy with gorgeous sprayed edges, and we do have another gorgeous foil and under the dust jacket. Like, it's a gorgeous, gorgeous edition. And I do think if you like sci-fi, if you've read a lot of sci-fi, you might enjoy this one more. And then the very last book, we have this collection of short stories, which is Rogues, and this was edited by George R.R. Martin and Gardner Dozois. I'll be honest, I read one short story from here because it's the reason why I got it, and that was Patrick Rothfuss's The Lightning Tree. It was a short story in here. However, Patrick Rothfuss has recently re-released The Lightning Tree, but under a different name, and done it slightly longer, like it's a reworking. Yeah, it was an okay book, but that it does mean because I have that copy now, I mean, as much as it's not my favourite thing that he's done, it was a reworking of a short story, and it was the only reason why I was keeping this is because of that short story. But now I have that in a separate edition. I don't need to keep this, and I'm not going to read the other short stories. I have had this for a good, what, 5 years, and never actually read any of the other short stories in here. When was this released? This was released in 2015, and I think I picked it up probably a couple years after when I realised there was a short story of Patrick Rothfuss in here. So yes, it's been a heck of a long time it's been on my shelves that I then have not read any of the other short stories, and it is a chunky book. There's a big book to keep on my shelf for one short story. But yeah, this is just a short story collection. I feel like somebody's going to really like this that wants to try out different fantasy authors and get an idea of their writing and that. So I think somebody could really like this. There's lots of different authors in here. We've got Joe Abercrombie, we've got Neil Gaiman, you've got Scott Lynch, Garth Nix. There is lots and lots of different authors in here, so definitely someone's going to enjoy this. But considering I've just never picked up any of the other short stories in here, there's no point me keeping hold of it. So there we are. That is all the books that I am unhauling. Like I say, it's not actually that many. The majority of these are all going to charity shops. There's also a free library at work, which I'll probably end up hitting the majority of them one morning. But yeah, that's everything. You'll have to let me know, have you read any of these? Would you read any of these? And yeah, about unhauls. Do you actually unhaul books? You'll have to let me know. But I think that's enough talking for now. I feel like I've been talking for absolutely ages. Probably not even going to be that long a video, but it's time for me to stop chit-chatting. Yeah, honestly, I think that's it. That's everything I needed to say for this video. I hope you liked it. I like doing unhauls. I do like doing a bit of a spring clean of my shelves and just going through things, especially like at the start of a year. I feel like it's really nice to go through, clear off the space, and know that all the books you've got are books that you enjoy. So I'm really pleased with that. I do think in the coming months there might be 1 or 2 books that I end up adding to the unhaul. Let me grab them actually. We have a book, The Kingdom is a Golden Cage by Lily Inkwood. This is on my February TBR. I am filming this in February. I pre-film when I can, and I just think this one could end up being on here. I'm not sure, but this book was picked for my TBR for being the lowest rated on Goodreads, and it's a Puss in Boots retelling, and I'm just not sure if it's for me. So this could end up, I mean, if by the time I get around to editing it I have read this one, I'll put in here whether I actually end up unhauling this one or not. And then the final one is How to Kill Your Family by Bella Mackie. I did contemplate putting it in here, but I would like to give this one a try before I unhaul it. So we'll see, because I'm hoping that I end up really liking it. It's just one I've had on my TBR for a while now. I don't know, I'm hoping I like it, but again, this is one that's got really mixed reviews, so I would like to try and get this one read. I'm thinking to put it onto a Tackle Your TBR readathon video. So again, this could be one that eventually I unhaul, but apart from those two, that's it. Everything else I've got I actually really want to read, or I know I would reread, so I'm really pleased with that. But right, it's time to stop talking. So thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you've made it this far but you don't know what to comment, or you just want to show you've made it this far, then you can leave like a little cleaning emoji in the comments below. Thank you once again for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, please do consider giving it that thumbs up, subscribe and commenting. Those 3 things really help this channel grow. My social media links and anyone I've mentioned will be linked below, and I will of course catch you in the very next video.